Come to me, please. Take me there.
Hello and welcome to the first episode of More Than Memory. I know I need a different studio and maybe a headline here on top, but maybe next time. A lot of things to do today. We'll have a nice show on this stream here. This is not a memory match today, there's no match coming up, but we will have a nice discussion. I will tell you about that later. First of all, I have a couple of categories prepared for this show, and I'm really excited to share with you today the first category and also the second, of course. The first category will be some news. The second one will be the discussion, and I'm looking forward to start that today. I was thinking about that project for quite a while right now and never done it somehow. Never started it because I always felt that I want to make it perfect from the first start, but it's impossible to do that. So finally I just decided to start at some point, and today is the day, More Than Memory. And yeah, we are going to start with some, and this is a new section, news. Yeah, it's looking like an news studio. So anyway, so news today. What do we have? This is actually the first mistake. This is Don Michael Vickers versus Emanuele Regnani. Also, there is a mistake in the writing. Anyway, so I think that was my editor. Anyway, so what we had yesterday, season 16 was starting, and in season 16 we had the first match, Don Michael Vickers versus Emanuele Regnani on Monday. That was the opening match of Division 1, and that was a very exciting one already. And sometimes you feel if it's really an opening match, people seem to be a bit more nervous than in other matches. And yeah, first match, Don versus Emanuele, and you see it in the first game. They both just did 50 cards, which means, yeah, Don won that game here, but just close because he had a faster time. Both were struggling here. Emanuele can't be happy with that here. And he is not in Italy anymore. He told us yesterday that he is now in Canada for a semester of studying, which was very interesting because he just arrived there 2 days ago. So that might be that he had a bit of jet lag, but he wouldn't put that as a reason here. And we are already in game number 4, and Don is fixing here the 80 digits, both with a safe time. So you see 80-80 for both of them. And yeah, both try to go safe here, which is very interesting because then point now in the next game already. And, of course, as always, Don with a slight smile. And they are talking about it. Nice strategy here from Emanuele. They're both the first match in the season, question mark. But then he lost national names, and you see it here. He even lost another cards game then. He was faster than Emanuele, but in the end, he finished only with 47 cards, giving him a hard time to win that match or even draw that match here at this point. So that was, at this point, it was a 3-3 after that game, and the next game was won by Don. 4-3 in images, and then the match point, another match point, third match point for Don. Can he make it this time was the question, and Don was able to finish with 13.91. That would be a top 10 in competitive games here for Don, and he was in the end able to fill all the gaps. Emanuele did it as well, but Don won the match here, and he has taken the lead in Division 1 at this point, 5-3 in the first match. Congrats, Don Michael Vickers, winning the first match in Division 1. And there was something else what I wanted to tell you, because it is, I think, kind of important for the memory sports world. And there's the questionnaire, it's not a questionnaire, the IAM, the International Association of Memory, wants your opinion. And your opinion on especially a topic which is very important for memory athletes. It's about the speed cards. Speed cards is usually the last discipline in the memory competition, and it usually works like that someone or that people have to memorize a deck of cards as fast as they can within as fast as he can, actually. And here you see, for example, here he was doing a 12.74 seconds recall here, memorization actually, on speed cards. And he's using a normal deck of cards, a real deck of cards. And the discussion right now is about if the real deck of cards will be not substituted, but if everyone has a chance to choose whether they have a real deck of cards or a digital deck of cards. And yeah, I don't want to say too much about pros and cons here, but if you want to give your opinion on that, there is a Facebook group, and if you haven't seen that Facebook group, it's a great group to get in touch with other memory athletes. So I will post the link in the description and here in the chat. Check it out and give us your opinion. Shall memory speed cards stay with real cards, or shall it maybe change to digital cards? And news number 3, the Mind Sports Olympiad 2022. It is back. It has been there for a couple of years now, but due to the pandemic, it couldn't be there for a while. And it was in the UK again, organized by Ben Pridmore, the man himself. And here, let's check a short glimpse into the room here. So we have a couple of competitors here sitting at their tables. This is a traditional format, and they don't play cards here. It's a recall of speed cards. In the middle, you see Ben here, the organizer, and the competition was won by a competitor from Poland, and this is Ewelina Press, and we will have her here in a second for a short interview. She has memorized 320 digits in 5 minutes, as well as 16 decks of poker cards, 52 cards each, in 30 minutes. So let's have a quick talk with her here before we start into our discussion. And Ewelina, now I will let our guests in here. Here we go. Everyone's joining here. Hi guys, and welcome.
Hello.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
It's so cool to have you all here today. Talk a bit about the topic of memory techniques and why do we need them in times of smartphones and stuff. And I would like to introduce you a bit before we start. So we have Boris Konrad, a well-known figure in the memory sports world. He's a neuroscientist, and he is working on research in terms of memory for quite a while right now. I think your first competition was in 1992. Maybe not that far, but I think 2003 or 4. What was it?
2003, yes.
Almost 20 years right now. And yeah, Boris is now making a living out of memory strategies, techniques, and coaching, training. And he has written a couple of books. The last book was coming out like 1 month ago or 2 months ago.
Yeah, 3 by now, I guess. May, June-ish. It was already out in the Netherlands last year. Yeah.
Nice, very cool. And we have Celine de Luca from Belgium here. You are actually a veterinarian, but you are right. You are working on clinical studies on vaccines.
Yeah.
What is it about?
Yes. So I work in clinical research. So I work for a society that makes like clinical research about vaccines to develop vaccines and make flu vaccines better and work on other with a different kind of strategy for the vaccine. So we basically make clinical researches on human, not on animals.
Cool. And you are doing memory sports since 2020, and now you developed a huge passion about the sport. Is that right?
Definitely.
Cool.
Definitely. Yeah. I've known techniques for longer because I used them for my studies, like back in, 5 or 6 years ago. But I didn't want to make sports. I just started the competitions and the sports, all the training around it in 2020. And I didn't stop till then. So.
Cool. And the third one here in this group, Ronald Johnson from Orlando, Florida. He has a podcast on the craft of memory and is a blogger. What are you blogging about in terms of memory techniques, mnemonics? What is it?
Yeah, I blog about the history and the art of mnemonics. So I just write about different systems, and then yeah, just the history and just my reflections on mnemonics in general.
Cool. Thank you guys for being here. Yeah, and the topic today is why do we need memory techniques when we have smartphones, endless storage in our pockets? And yeah, Boris, you have just done a talk, and I approach you and say, Mr. Konrad, I don't need that. I have my smartphone here. I have all my phone numbers here. I can look everything up in seconds on the internet. Why do I need to memorize anything? What do you respond in, let's say, 30 to 60 seconds, Boris? You can take your time, but yeah, what is your response?
Hopefully I have covered it in my talk before, because obviously it's something important. So when I give a speech, I will address that. And the example I give in the speech, it's just one of many examples, of course, is having ideas, being innovative. Because people have this romanticized idea how being innovative works. Like it comes out of nowhere. Like you're sitting there and suddenly this world-changing idea comes out of your head. But you need to be prepared for that. You cannot be innovative. You cannot have an idea about something where there are no connections within your brain. So learning being new connections forming in your brain, linking new topics, leads to innovation by maybe somewhat spontaneous or coincidental activity of engrams of neural patterns that haven't been co-active before. But if they are not there anymore, because they are just in Wikipedia, you will not have an idea. And sadly, Wikipedia won't neither. So if we want to be innovative, we certainly need memories.
Cool, very interesting answer here. And today it will work like that. So I don't always give you the word, but if you have something specific to say, just raise your hand. But I will just go with the next one here. Celine, what would be your approach here on that question?
I think the main problem to rely on internet to find any knowledge is the dependence on this and this technology, to be completely and fully dependent on the technology that is not that always accessible, is not that always easy. So you're fully dependent on this, and this doesn't help you to take decisions. As I just joined what Boris says about, like, if you need to make emerge new ideas, you need to have to know them already, to know things to make emerge all these new ideas. So you can't make decisions if you just don't remember anything that you read, if you don't memorize anything that you learned in a video or anything. You cannot make it emerge, and you become completely dependent on this technology, which is absolutely not helpful. Like, what's the point to have an access that if you don't even remember it or if you don't learn it, I think.
Ronald Johnson, Ronald, I just go with you, Ronald, right, actually. So yeah, what is your take on that?
Yeah, so if someone were to ask me that question, I would point them to how we describe the way we know, or we use words like hunger for truth or thirsty for knowledge, or when someone says something is good, or like when they say a very profound point, we say, that's good, as if knowledge is something that you can eat and taste and bite into. And I think there's this internalization of knowledge, or this digesting of knowledge that you have with memory techniques that you can't quite get through like an external database. So like when we think about chewing on food, it's like the repetition, like you're biting up and down, up and down. And you could say memorization and review is sort of like the meditation of the mind, the chewing on of information. And then also this, I'm not gonna go on a tangent, but also there's this other thing, like there's this Italian word for remember, which is ricordare, or also there's this word for review, which ripassare, which means again, passare, to walk and cross. So it's this idea of going back and forth. And when you think about going through the memory palace, you're going back and forth and encountering those ideas. And then when you're thinking about, let's say, the way architecture is made, like when you think of a piazza, where it's this constant movement and you're going in circles. You have this idea that you can interact with others. So you can have the interaction with ideas when you're reflecting upon the information that you have on mind. And as Boris mentioned before, that you can be more creative and innovative through this interaction of ideas that you have stored in your mind. So that's one of the things I would say.
Cool. From the others, anything here on that? So, because if I would play the devil's advocate here, it is like, there's Elon Musk. He is creating a brain link. So we will have everything then from this brain link. You just have to look it up, and all the ideas which we would need to create would somehow created through this link. I don't know. And we will have devices like for translation to understand each other in different languages. It looks like that we will have these devices in our ears at some point, like in Star Trek, and we can listen to the other one on spot. And this is all cool stuff. So, and your answers were, I liked your answers, but it's all very philosophical. And so why do I need that in my daily life? I mean, why do I need memory techniques in my daily life? Isn't it a different approach than being innovative? Is important, of course, but daily life, why should I train my memory? What is your opinion on that?
I think that even to have any critical point of view and just to judge things that happen around you, you can't judge anything if you don't have knowledge. And like memory technique, I used in this to gain knowledge out of the nice stuff. Like I can remember a phone number, or I can remember this. Just gain the knowledge, and to gain knowledge fast and effectively, it's better to use some memory techniques, of course. So just to gain knowledge, because knowledge allows you to be critical with your life and to take effective decisions. Because if you don't know, you're going to see an information, you have absolutely no idea if this is good or not, or how you should judge it, and you just believe whatever you believe, and you don't have any critical point of view of anything. Just this knowledge helps you to this. Even if you want to take a decision, if you go, I don't know, like you go in a shop and they want to sell you something, if you're unable to take your own decision, to have a judgment, to know what the person is telling you about, you will just be following all the time, and you will never be active in your life. If you're unable to use your brain and to use your knowledge, you're always passive in everything that you do. But if you want to be like this, okay. But if you don't want, I think that's how memory techniques, I guess this is how I implement them in my life, I think, in my daily life.
I think in daily life, there are different aspects. It's a handy tool for different things, where it might be bigger or less big depending on where you are in your life. So if you are still a student in school, in university, in another educational trajectory, it might be additional education in your job, then obviously, despite being able to look things up, someone will also test you on it. You want to internalize knowledge. Here, mnemonic techniques definitely help to memorize it better. If you're someone working in people business, if you are a leader in some function or in sales, remembering people's names and faces and what they actually told you can be really handy. So this is the part where it's just a tool. One more example, next month I'll give a keynote speech for over 200 IT managers of one of the biggest German companies, who say that still the biggest threat to IT always is people not remembering not to click on weird emails, and people remembering that their password shouldn't be password 123. So these are still very minor things where just giving knowledge about memory to people can be beneficial. But then the second aspect links more to what you already just said, Celine, that I was saying having a control over your memory also helps to give you a different mindset. So in my newest book, I compare it to the concept of this growth mindset versus fixed mindset, which is usually linked to intelligence. But in intelligence, the issue is, well, we say you should have a growth mindset. You should believe you could become more intelligent, but that's actually a little bit debatable if that's true. So we know it's good to believe that, but it's not fully true. But for memory, it is. And so many people just say, oh, I have a bad memory, and I admire you, all of us probably, because you have a good memory. No, we don't. We just learned how to use it. And if people say, well, I don't believe it, and you make them experience it, it's just one simple example of this mnemonic techniques, you completely smash their mindset of their memory being bad, because they will realize, well, I could just do something I couldn't have done before. So they believe in themselves and get more curious, more motivated about knowledge, about educating themselves. And then the third aspect could be becoming older, aging. And if you speak to aging people, and particularly if they have maybe some symptoms of dementia, of memory loss, but they're still conscious, they all say that having memory is core to their personality, is core to their lives, and that they're really worried about losing their memory. In the Western cultures, at least, the biggest fear among people 60 plus is getting memory loss. And then we know that probably mnemonic techniques cannot prevent the disease of Alzheimer's. It can certainly prolong the years you have without symptoms, because you build up a so-called cognitive reserve. And my background gets really weird. Sorry for that. But these are some different aspects that hopefully all motivate people to realize, well, yes, it's useful that I can use my GPS system to drive to a place I haven't been to. Yes, it's great that I can save phone numbers, and I don't store all phone numbers I hear in my memory, but most of them in my iPhone. It's still handy as a tool to remember a few more than the average person, but that's just a tiny bit of why memory techniques are so useful.
That's very interesting, because like this is exactly how I felt when I learned these memory techniques. I gained so much in confidence just in my life, like, because when you feel that you have these tools that can really bring you anything, because you can change your job anytime you want, and you will be able to learn much faster a new job. You can learn any new knowledge, any new abilities and skills much faster. Like I can receive a new code for my bank card, and it's okay. It doesn't stress me out. I can meet new people and I will remember their face if I want. If I don't make any effort, I will probably forget. But if I want, I have the tools. And this, I really gained in confidence in my life, just learning memory techniques in my studies and even after, to be able to, like, if I want to become anyone, I can become, because I have these tools that help me to learn anything very fast. So that's interesting, and this is really something that I gain, and this is very good, I think, when you learn this memory technique, to gain and to trust yourself much more.
Ronald?
Yeah, and just to add to your question about language, if someone could give me a chip and just sort of put it in my brain, and for me to automatically learn a language and to understand everything, would I want that? And my response would be no. It's because there's certain things that I learn about human nature, about myself, and about the world in the process of learning a language. There's certain lessons that you learn when learning a language. So for example, you learn about humility, because if you're in the process of learning a language, it's like becoming young again. It's like going back in the dark womb, and you're there for 9 months in this darkness of ignorance, and then immediately the light shines and you begin to understand, and then you continue to grow in the language as human growth. And then as you get to your upper intermediate level, your growth is a little slower, and then your hair turns gray and you begin to grow in the language. And it's if Shakespeare were to learn a language, he would have to be young again, and he would have to learn how to say mama and daddy. There's this humility, there's this dependence upon community that we learn only through learning a language. And we can also do this with knowledge. When we think about memory palaces, it's something that you have to construct, that you have to build. And it makes me view knowledge more as treasure, as silver and gold, because the winds of forgetfulness want to blow, it wants to pound, it wants to rip, it wants to tear out the knowledge that I have. But if I view knowledge as silver and gold, I can protect it. And then it teaches me patience, that is brick upon brick, that is layer upon layer. And these things you can only learn through memory training, and not just the instant download of information upon your mind.
So if I understand you correct, it's like in martial arts, you just don't only learn the martial arts itself, but you learn other aspects of it, like discipline, how to prepare yourself, how to be in a different mental state, things like that. So you would suggest that memory techniques also serve as a yeah, as a tool to develop as a person. Yeah.
Exactly.
By the way, if anyone in the chat has a question, just let us know about it. And what I wanted to, Anthony Metivier sent me a longer video. I have just parts here. And in one part, he was talking about freedom, which I really liked. I will show you that part here. Let's see if that works here for all of us and for the people out there. So let's check. I will do it on here on the Zoom call, and this is it.
The freedom to be able to sift, sort, and screen information from within the quietude of a plenitude that you have invested in your mind. And if you don't have that plenitude, you can't do the sorting and the sifting and the screening. You're always doing it through an interface. And yeah, that's cool. It's cool to be able to have an interface. But to be able to come to the beach, I normally don't bring a phone with me. Brought it today though for this. And just sit there, and I can sit and recall something from my memory that I memorized, a text that's thousands of years old. And I can sit there and I can do 45 minutes of ancient Sanskrit knowledge. Sanskrit knowledge, better said. Discrete Sanskrit. But I can do it. And I don't need to interface with the machine. But the difference between the book that I got it from, or if I memorized that material from a screen, it doesn't really matter because it's information in a storage and retrieval device. So the brain has these information and storage and retrieval, abilities. Computers have this, books have this. We could take a piece of wood like this and carve words into it. It becomes an information storage and retrieval device. But it's not going to contain all knowledge. All knowledge is always yet to come, in the same way that the next wave is yet to come. It's always yet to come, so long as there is an ocean.
Yeah, so I like that answer a lot because he was referring to the brain as a storage. But as you already told us here, it's more than that. But anyway, when he was talking about this Sanskrit stuff, which he memorized, did one of you also did something like that? Like memorized, I don't know, the Bible or anything, any poems or texts or anything like that, to be able to recite that at any point just for fun or for an audience? Anyone of you did that already? Ronald?
Yes. I memorized some books of the Bible and poetry, and I recite it. And I think one of the beautiful things about the memory palace and memory techniques in general is that I think it could make you more insightful when memorizing texts, because you're able to make internal cross references. So let's say you memorize the Divine Comedy by Dante, and there's 3 books. Like, you could have each book simultaneously next to each other, and you could sort of connect the dots and make some insights that the average reader wouldn't be able to make, because they don't have these sort of tables of text that are parallel to each other. And that's one of the benefits that I found when memorizing extended portions, is my ability to make connections and insight. And also, just another point is that there is a relationship between inventory and invention. So when we think of composing, like if you have an inventory of text in your mind, you're able to weave them together in order to create something new. And that's even the origin of text, textus, which comes from Latin, which also means to weave or a texture. So yeah, I think that's one of the benefits of memory techniques in relationship to memorizing extended portions of text.
Cool. Yeah, the others, Boris, Celine, anything like that? Have you done anything like that? I know Boris has done a lot of memory stunts also for TV shows and stuff like that. But have you ever done something comparable to that?
not with the meaning of what Anthony has with this, I have to admit. So as you said, I did some more memory demonstrations. One which is kind of meaty and kind of interesting was already many years back that a French artist had approached me, and he got to organize a whole exposition at the famous Guggenheim Museum in New York with a number of contemporary young artists. And it was about time and memory. So they were all showing some of their own favorites of their prior work, sometimes in updated versions, and also some new things. And he had the idea that the audio guide of this exposition could be an exhibit by itself. And then I got to memorize the 40-page description of this exhibition, memorize it, and then speak it in from memory. And then people could listen to me speaking it in from memory, where you could still hear that I had to search for images. I didn't know it that much by heart that I could also recite it. So it was more like me trying to remember my images and saying the correct text, which kind of gave a specific flair to the things and people listening in. So that was interesting. But it completely would have changed the purpose if this artist had done it himself, for example, and then could have traveled his own career in this way. To me, maybe I'm less spiritual. Maybe that's part of why I don't rely on specific texts, but I can achieve something maybe remotely similar to what Anthony said in his film. That, for example, I have, based on different models, always somewhat of a year planning, or also back in the years in memory sports, I always had very detailed plans, which sometimes worked and mostly not. So I like plans. It's just part of my personality. And then I also work with the best year yet plan. Maybe some people know it. It's by an American woman who wrote it. She sadly died a few years back. Jeannie Ditzler. We just set a number of goals and roles for the year. And I always memorize that in a very specific memory palace I only have for that purpose. So when I have some time on the beach or having a walk, I can go through my memory palace garden where I store recent and long-term goals and also memories of things I have achieved. So I think this is very always relaxing for me, also giving me the control of not remembering important things, because I know at least the roles and main goals I have and can always access. And I think it also again links to some work from Belgium by a young psychologist there, who, for example, shows that it can also be helpful to use a memory palace to make an inventory of happy memories and successful memories. So when you feel a bit depressed or low or something didn't work out, you can stroll through it and remember many great times and get back into a positive mood. And that's something I didn't do in the first few years I was in memory sports, but only just a couple of years back actually built. And now don't go there daily. Luckily, that's not needed, but go there occasionally and find it kind of nice to have this kind of log. And for me, it serves maybe a similar purpose, where for Anthony, these older scriptures have a similar purpose.
Celine, you are not so long right now into the memory sports world, and you're doing a lot of competitive stuff. Did you also experience longer projects already, or is it a goal for you to do that? Or is it more like being competitive here and just train the techniques?
Well, I just want to improve my techniques as much as possible, but also like I used memory a lot out of competitive stuff, because I started with the memory techniques without the sports for my studies. And now I use them a lot out of the training. Of course, I train and I'm competitive, and this is also a long-term goal because I want to keep competing and I want to evolve. I have long-term goal about the competitions, but I also work a lot of the techniques out of the competition. And this is also something that I'm working on a lot. And I know that everything is linked anyway. Like if I improve much in competition, I know that I can just transfer this to all the other projects that I have with memory techniques too.
And Boris was mentioning that in terms of it might help you here and there with your mood or depression or whatever. I mean, I'm not sure, maybe Boris knows that. I'm not sure how much research is done about that yet, but Celine, do you have such an effect? Do you feel different when you were into the state of being able to memorize like half an hour or 1 hour or just 10 minutes? Because I feel that this makes something with me. It's like a meditation. You're just doing one thing You're just going through images, you're memorizing stuff, and it's really a bit working like a meditation for me. Celine, did you experience something similar? Yeah.
Exactly the same. Every time that I train, after I am so relaxed, and I am very like relaxed and peaceful, and I feel always good. And I like to train for this too because it brings peace, and I calm down. And I think it's because the intense focus that you have when you train, like when you train on memory league is a bit different because this is short, but when I train on IAM for long discipline or even just 5 minutes, because you memorize for 5 minutes but you recall for 10, so you just spend minimum 15 minutes in front of your screen being in an intense focus, and there is no other thought that crossed my mind. Like I'm just focused on what I'm doing. I am in my palace and nothing bad is happening because I'm just on my palace with my images that I built that are made for me and are positive for me. So I really feel like a meditation too. I feel after a training, I'm always relaxed, always nice, and I enjoy it. I really enjoy it. I think that you need maybe to reach a certain comfort of training or something to reach that and to not suffer too much. But I feel the same. I think this is the focus, maybe. I guess I don't know if the others they experience the same, but the intense focus really helps you calm down and just to not have any parasite thoughts for like maybe 30 minutes sometimes.
Cool. Boris, have you looked something up in the meantime?
Yeah, I looked if this guy I was talking about has any newer studies released, but doesn't look like this. I think he left academia a bit too early. But yeah, his name is Kaspar Bormans. And so it's not just about the memory palace having this maybe mesmerizing effect we just described for ourselves. He's actually teaching it to people to then not store words or playing cards on the locations, but happy memories. Because people who are either depressed sometimes struggle with that. If you ask them, what are your 10 happiest memories? And they say, well, I was having my wedding and my child was born, but nothing happy ever else happened in my life. Maybe did you also ever travel? Yeah, I had this really nice journey in my youth. And yeah, and it work-wise. Oh yeah, when I got promoted, it was also nice. And then afterwards we asked them, well, can you name 10 happy things now? Well, yeah, my wedding, and the other things I already forgot again, because it's a bit exaggerating how I say it now. That would be a very extreme case, but it goes into this direction. If you help people come up with good memories and people they like and things they enjoy and makes them memorize this, the memory palace suddenly gives them access to it. And then it's still a mental effort to do that. That's for sure. And it's not like the magical pill that cures all mental health issues, obviously not. But it can be a tool that can be helpful. And that's something I was referring to. And yes, I agree, we need more scientific research to back it up a bit further. But he has done some research a couple of years back and published a bit of that. And hopefully we will see more going into this direction.
Cool. Yeah, just maybe you can send me a link to that so I can connect it here somehow. Cool. That was really something what I was really curious about, if that has an influence at some point. Ronald, anything on that topic from your side? The mental part, being in a meditative state.
Yeah, I would agree. When I first started memory training, I noticed that it increased my ability to focus, and I was less distracted and moved by the external temptations to move away from what I'm doing. Because if you're memorizing for 30 minutes or for 5 minutes and you're trying to get as fast and accurate as possible, you have to train yourself to quiet the thoughts that rumble like thunderstorms. Because the mind is, I don't know if it's for you, but for me, I feel like the mind can be like somewhat like an atmosphere where you have these lightning that flashes of thoughts, and then you have the rumbling of what you're going to do in the afternoon, or these anxiety or stress, and you have to learn to quiet it down like the calm of a sea and to filter everything out. And then when I have that continual practice of slowing down, of calming, of moving everything out, I find that when I'm facing a lot of pressure at work, like I have deadlines, I have things that I need to do, I'm able to stand and sort of calm myself down, and then sort of make the storming sea calm. So I think that's one of the benefits and the effects that I found with memory training.
Yeah, it would be really nice to see if it can be measured in a way, if kind of mnemonic training can have similar benefits as meditative practice or something like this. That just purely anecdotal and purely being my experience. I find it interesting sometimes when I give speeches in somewhat noisy environments. Like maybe I'm booked to give a speech, but I didn't book a closed room because it should be all open and about networking. So I'm like in this big hall, and all around there's all this fair stuff happening, and it's really noisy, and I find it really hard to focus on my text. But then when I give to do a memory demonstration and memorize a deck of cards in not competition speed, but a minute or two on stage, that's never really an issue. People are afterwards like, it's amazing you can even do this. It's more amazing you can do this with like all this noise around. But while I do it, I don't recognize it anymore. I don't hear it anymore. I don't wear any earplugs or anything. And I will not be as good as quietly doing my practice at home. But still, I find it really interesting that when I really focus on these kind of things, I can block out all these disturbing things way more. And then it feels afterwards I'm also less disturbed when I then go on with my speech.
Cool. And I think one important question is also, how do we get these techniques into like schools or something? Because we all discovered these techniques for our own when we were already grown up. And as soon as there are teachers who really appreciate these techniques and stuff, but in general it's still like we don't think this is effective enough, and how to use these techniques on, let's say, on complex stuff, because people always think complex stuff is not easily done with that. So what do you answer to them, people who think my stuff is too complex, I can't use memory techniques, that doesn't make sense? What would be your answer, Ronald?
That's a good question. I've reflected upon this a lot. For me, I'm gonna get somewhat metaphorical here, but I think sometimes metaphors are the best way to explain things. But for me, it's not so much like a matter of knowing, but it's more about a matter of seeing. So if I were to ask, well, how do I get people to become artists? Well, I would go to Italy and I would show them the Davide. Or how do I think it's more about capturing someone's imagination and not just merely dumping theoretical knowledge. Okay, this is memory techniques, this is how it can benefit your life. But it's more about showing the power and the beauty and the majesty and the wonder of mnemonics, sort of like the beauty and the power and the majesty of the Grand Canyon or their Niagara Falls. If you want to get people into memory techniques, you show them, you give them a demonstration. How was Celine able to memorize 80 digits so quickly? Or how is Boris able to memorize a deck of cards in under a minute? Or how is Andrea Muzzi able to memorize this in a matter of 10 seconds? Or how is this guy able to recite an entire epic poem forwards and backwards? That should sort of stir the sense of awe and majesty, like when you're looking at a work of Leonardo or a beautiful piece of architecture. I think that's the way to get people in techniques, is by showing them, being a walking an example of its power.
Celine?
I think there are still some way to get these people into it, because from the people that I know from my family or anything, when I talk about it, or when I talk about the training or the memory things, most of the time people, they don't understand the link with reality. And this is a bit what we are talking about. They say, my little brother asked me once, what's the point in memorizing a deck of cards? Like, you never use it in your life. But there is something important that they don't understand, of course, because maybe you need to do it, is that what I use to memorize a deck of cards, the foundations of these techniques are the same to memorize a book. So when I read a book, a nonfiction book, and I memorize the entire book, I use the same thing. I use a memory palace. Everything is transformed into an image, and the image interact with each other. So I do the same when I memorize a book or when I memorize digits or cards. And this is the application to this technique. This technique is the foundation of the techniques you apply in your daily life. You apply in everything that you do. And memory sports, they are so like precise in some disciplines that it's hard sometimes even for other people to see how you can use it in your life, but it's because they don't know, and because it's still hard, I think, for people to understand that memory and brain abilities, they are just trained. Like you don't get to be born with a good or a bad memory. This is hard for people to understand. This is very hard. Everybody accept that you can be more muscle if you want, but they don't want to accept that you can be not smarter, because it's not the right term, but with a better memory if you want. This is something that they can't understand. And I think that maybe the key is to transfer and to show how you can use these techniques in your life, to memorize a book, to memorize your course. Once I read that, I don't know if it's still the case, but I was watching a TED talk, and the guy was saying that at this moment, the guy that have the records of the dates discipline, he memorized in 5 minutes the amount of date that the student have to memorize in the old scholarship. And I thought that this was so amazing just to hear it that way, is that in 5 minutes, without any much effort, when we memorize dates or digits, we are focused, but we don't suffer. So without that much suffering, you can do what they do in all the scholarship, and most of the students, they can't even do, and they don't even remember them. So it's just to take these foundations, show that how you can use for normal things or for your daily life. This is something that will get people into it, I think.
And Boris, you have little kids, and we talked about that shortly earlier. So what approach, do you have a specific approach or an idea how to, let's say, grow them up or with memory techniques around them? Is there anything specific you think of, or is it just just happening on the side? What is your idea about that?
Well, they're not in school age yet, so this formal learning didn't really start that much, but I want them to keep having fun with memory. So maybe we do memory games. I encourage that, and they come up with that themselves, as all kids do. But then we do variations, like in this pairs game, we will not just play pairs, but we also might turn all the cards over and then make a long story to remember the positioning of all 30, 40 cards. Even though my daughter is 4 and my son is 3, they can easily do that. They can recite the whole story, and then they know exactly where which card is. And that's not because they are my kids. Again, if people believe that, that's of course nonsense. Any kid can do that because it's just how the brain works. And so I want them to keep this fun, and that they enjoy it, and that they like doing it. And I think that's really important. And then when school will start, and I might hear for the first time, or I can't remember that, or that's hard to learn, so now we'll maybe add a little more direct use of techniques. But for example, we did very minor things, not that this is extremely useful, but to show them what's possible, like they know like a set of locations through our living room, and use that, for example, to remember the names of the months of the year. And that even worked when they were 2 and 3 years old. So it's not that other 2 and 3 year old kids will not learn the months. Of course, they will learn the months as well. And if you have songs which make it a rhythm, kids remember it quickly, but just in a different way. So when maybe it becomes more handy, it's not the first time they've ever done it, but they have already experienced it, and that it's just a way how you can remember something.
Cool. So we are approaching already the end of today. So I would like to have from each of you like a very short motivational statement. If someone is here right now watching this, and he or she is somehow convinced that it's important to talk about stuff and to make connections, to be innovative and so on. But first thing is, how should I start right now? And the second thing is, what is the motivation for that person? So a short statement from each of you. Who want to go first?
I can go first, and actually Ronald, and I would say be your own example. If you doubt this might be useful, try it out yourself. There are many awesome videos on YouTube which give a good instruction. If you're more readers, there are many great web pages. If you like to listen, there are amazing podcasts and blogs by Anthony, by Ronald, by others. So there's many resources to give you a head start to just try it out and then be on your example. Because once you realize, well, this worked, then you want to know more for yourself.
Cool, thanks. Celine?
I would say that memory techniques, they have this power that you just need even to spend 5 minutes to discover it, and you make great progress, and then you go a bit slower, but you can quickly make great progress. You teach someone the memory palace techniques in just 5 or 10 minutes, even less maybe, and this person is going to do something that thought she could never do. So with just a few techniques, you make huge progress. Just try the first techniques, and you're going to see the progress that you make. And this feeling that you discover something about yourself, that you discover that you have this superpower out of nowhere will get addictive. Will get completely addictive. And so this is priceless. Just try a bit. Just give you 5 minutes of memory techniques, and you're going to see that it's impossible to stop after.
Cool. And Ronald?
I will leave a quote by Charles Spurgeon. He said, "A man who never reads will never be read. A man who never quotes will never be quoted. A man who never uses the thoughts of other men's brain proves that he has no brain of his own." And one thing I want to point out is the man who never quotes will never be quoted. And I think this gives an insight on the power of memory, is that you need to have an inventory of the treasures of knowledge and wisdom. You need to reflect upon it, walk back to and fro, and you can weave these together within your soul, and you can become a more wise, a more knowledgeable, and a better and a more flourishing human being. So that would be my encouragement, is to learn the art of memory.
Thank you very much, everyone. I think we have a nice mixture of people here today with different approaches. Boris, Ronald, and Celine, thank you very much for being here. Hope you enjoyed it too. And if anyone here in the chat, no questions here, but if you have any questions, just get in touch with me or the others. Thank you very much. Have a nice afternoon.
You. That was great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the meeting. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Ciao.
All right. See y'all later.
See you. Bye-bye. So, yeah, that's it for today. First episode, some hiccups here and there, but I think it was quite good. I'm happy that it is done. Next week, we will have here Simon Reinhardt, and we are talking a bit about memory techniques and chess. So a bit about how to memorize or use memory techniques in chess. Simon is a very well-known figure in the memory sports world, a legend, I would say. And he's also very good in chess, and he recently created something together with that. He will talk about that next week. Thank you very much for watching today. Have a nice day, evening, whatever it is. And as always, keep on memorizing. Bye-bye.